Hey guys, I'm Nick and welcome back to the channel. Well, today we're talking about Star Trek Discovery Season 4, Episode 10, entitled The Galactic Barrier. This was a good, typical Star Trek episode in, I think, the vein of Star Trek of old, I think. You know, original series, Next Generation, the crew goes out exploring where no one has gone before. They're crossing through the barrier into unexplored space. We're kind of getting back to the roots of Star Trek here, I think, where it doesn't seem like we get that many episodes, I suppose, where we're really venturing into unknown territory. Even though we're in the 32nd century, I think now that we're there, we kind of have to go push out further past the edge of the galaxy to kind of get into areas where no one has gone before, which is kind of like, you know, the mantra of Star Trek. So it's good to see Star Trek operating in this wheelhouse. Guys, if you're new to Sci Fanatics, please don't forget to subscribe. Click that big red button to stay up to date with all the current Star Trek news on YouTube, or maybe just a viewer who's been here a few times but hasn't clicked that big red button. So please go ahead. Really helps the channel out. This episode starts off, we get to see a little bit of the classic era of kind of comm badges and universal translators. We've got the desk here in the conference room covered with various different comm badges, translators, all that sort of thing. We start off with a Star Trek Picard era comm badge and / universal translator, and we've got other things on the desk here going back, you know, to original series and all that sort of thing. So that was kind of cool to see all this old-fashioned tech on the table there in the conference room, talking about how they're going to broach making contact with Species 10C, and even if they are able to be communicated with. Nobody seems to know. We've got a couple of little moments in this scene as well where Saru is casting a few kind of flirty looks across the table at President T'Rina. This relationship is slowly burning away. It's not taking huge leaps ahead. It's a slow burn with these two, but it's fun to kind of watch them progress very slowly through this relationship. We obviously have the moment in this episode where Saru thinks he's going to go out to the off past the edge of the galactic barrier and probably never see T'Rina again. So he kind of puts himself out there quite significantly. He sort of doesn't really get any kind of reciprocated comments from her. And then obviously later on finds out that she's come along to the mission because the Navajo representative couldn't make it. So she's having to sort of step in, which kind of makes things somewhat awkward for poor old Saru. He's been left with his proverbial ganglia hanging out. And he sort of doesn't quite know how to handle it. He's, you know, obviously there's a moment there where he kind of, you know, is talking to Dr. Culber and he sort of acknowledges the situation, but hopefully he'll get some sort of clarity from T'Rina in incoming episodes, because the poor guy, he was kind of left a bit hanging. I feel bad for him. We also get to find out in this episode that Dr. Kovich is working on something very secretive and very important. And as President Ndoye of Earth commented in the conference scene here at the start, he says, I've got something more important to do. It's like, what the hell are you doing, mate, that is more important than this? We've got the DMA, you know, literally charging towards Alpha Quadrant planets, about to swallow them whole, and you're working on something that's more important than dealing with that situation. And not only is Kovich working on it, but it seems like Bryce has been away quite a few times from the Discovery. We've obviously had Lieutenant Christopher take his place on the bridge, but he's doing something with Dr. Kovich, and obviously being a communications specialist, maybe he's working on something communication-based with Kovich to, you know, be able to communicate with Species 10C or something like that, perhaps. But it seems all very top secret. Nobody seems to know what it's all about. Kovich is very tight-lipped. Bryce hasn't said anything either. But I'm guessing this is going to be something that is the proverbial cavalry to the rescue. Whether there's something going on where they'll get to a point where they get to Species 10C and they can't communicate, and then in charges Kovich and Bryce saying, hey, we've invented this special new universal translator that can talk to them, or something to that effect. In which case, you know, what's so top secret about that? Surely that would be something that would buoy the hopes of all the crew and everybody, you know, that's been working on. And I don't see how that's sort of a massive security risk by revealing it, if that is in fact the case. But I guess we will see in coming episodes. There's a few really good, nice scenes in this episode between Burnham and Rillak. I think these two are really gaining an appreciation for each other. Sometimes there's been moments in the past where they've kind of butted heads or they haven't really gotten along. But I think Rillak has now come to appreciate Burnham a little bit more, and vice versa as well. Particularly talking about the discovery in this episode where they find out that the next planetary systems that the DMA is kind of heading towards is in the neighbourhood of Navarre and Earth. So obviously Burnham wants to tell the crew. Rillick doesn't want to tell the crew. Obviously when we started the season there was just nothing but headbutting going on, but now I think they've got past that and they're working quite well together. And as a nice counterpoint to this working together well between Burnham and Rillick, I think this episode also really humanised Tarka quite a bit. As Book pointed out in this episode, mate, you're an asshole, and I think even Tarka said at one point, yeah, mate, yeah, I'm an asshole. That he kind of admitted it. But I think when we got to know a bit of his history, we got the story of him being a slave in the Orion camps, working on scientific stuff, and the fact that he made a bond and a connection with this other scientist, Oros, in this little flashback sequence, I think it humanised Tarka a lot more. Where, yeah, he's a bit of an asshole, but he's not as bad as we thought he was. He's got his motivations, comes out of the loyalty and friendship that he made with this character back when he was being held in the Orion camp. It was a sweet scene to see between these two characters, the flashbacks, because I think it was done in a really, really good way. They formed this bond. I think it's great that the storytellers or Discovery didn't necessarily feel it was necessary to go down a kind of an intimate relationship road. I think they just kept it as a sweet platonic friendship, and I think that was a really good avenue to take it. More often than not, I think we get a very strong helping on Discovery of the diverse. We get a lot of that with Adira and Gray and Stamets and Culber and everything, which is great. It's good to have diversity in the show, but I think it was good that we didn't necessarily have to take it down that same kind of road for Oros and Tarka. I think it was very, very, very sweet. I think that they kept this as a really nice platonic friendship and an admiration, because they're such great scientists. There was such a bond that they formed because of their shared expertise in science and everything. And I think that was a really nice touch between these two characters, and certainly humanised Tarka quite a bit and made us, I think, feel a bit more for this character than we have in past episodes. It was nice to see in the group of delegates we had from various different cultures. Obviously, we've got, Torina, and we've got Rillick, and we had Ndoye, the science communications expert there, as well as a Ferengi character. I think we've seen this Ferengi before in a couple of conference scenes, but we've never heard them say a word, nor have we heard any Ferengi say a word in Discovery. So I'm kind of hoping we get a little bit of interaction with our Ferengi delegate in forthcoming episodes. I really enjoyed all of the flashback stuff with Tarka and Book in the Orion work camp. I think seeing all that history, I think, dredged up and everything, and what he got up to, and some of the moments and so forth in his life that kind of shaped his personality and shaped, some of that resentment and aggression and, anger and all that sort of thing, I think was kind of good to see. And I think the whole sequence with the galactic barrier and the Discovery pushing through various pockets of kind of normal space that had drifted from, our galaxy through the barrier, kind of thing. So they sort of had to make these little mini jumps to these different pockets in order to get through it. I think that was a really nice way of getting through the barrier. I think the whole barrier itself was great, had a great sense of awe and danger, and we might not make it. We've only got a certain amount of shields, and they're pushing power from every other system just to try to make it through. I think that was a really nice scenes of exploration and that uncertainty and danger of exploration that is at the heart of Star Trek. Obviously, with the urgent message that came in with Navarre and Earth being in the firing line of the DMA, that's just lifted the stakes one notch higher or several notches higher, because obviously now they have to the stakes in order to communicate and get this DMA shut down even greater, because Earth and Vulcan are in the path. It was nice to see Adira back again, and obviously they had this nice little communication with Stamets in engineering, where they, talked about what Gray's doing on Trill. And I think, Stamets is settling nicely into his sort of father figure role with Adira. The relationship scenes between Saru and Tarina, obviously a little bit awkward in this episode. At the end of there, we had them going into the Discovery Lounge or bar, and of course in the background we've got our obligatory Lurian. There's always a Lurian in the background of a drinking establishment. I think this is in a contract somewhere where whenever we see any form of drinking establishment or gambling establishment, there always has to be one Lurian in the background in homage to Morn of DS9. So they kept that going again in this episode. And obviously a little bit of awkwardness creeping in there between Tarina and Saru, and I really hope that she doesn't leave him hanging for too long and gives him some sort of answer, because the poor guy, he's put it out there. All in all, I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was a great Star Trek episode. I think we had a good selection of involvement from our bridge crew. We're getting out there past the galactic barrier, going where no one has gone before. It's what Star Trek is all about. We got some really nice depth and character development between both Burnham and Rillick, as well as Book and Taka, and seeing the flashbacks with Taka as well, with him and Oros. I think we're wonderful. I think we got a really nice insight into some of our characters this season, and it really felt like a decent Star Trek episode to me. Guys, let me know what your thoughts were on this episode. Please leave a comment in the comments section. Leave a super thanks as well if you're able to. It really helps the channel out. Much appreciated. Share this video with your friends. Check out my other great videos and also my merch in the merch store. There's always heaps of cool t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, caps, all that sort of thing. Lots of great Star Trek designs, always putting some new ones in there, so be sure to check that out. Really helps support the channel, much appreciated. And I'll be back very soon with my next video. I'll catch you guys soon.